show. I am Buddy Martin. Glad to be with you on this chilly night. At least up here in Northwest Florida, it's kind of cold. That's the sweater. Hope it's a little warmer where you are. And tonight we talk about, well, what else? Certainly football, but we're going to talk about Jon Sumrall. He surfaced today as a member or guest of WRUF. Steve Russell had him on. We'll tell you some of the things he said. Also, Allie Peak Wilbur tonight. We talk about what's the role of the media exactly? What the journalist supposed to do? Well, Allie will give us her thoughts about that. Then we've got our local guy, a guy that does a terrific job in Gainesville. He is a columnist sometimes for us, and he has the insight. That's what happened to the local folks there. And Eddie Gilley joins us on the program tonight. So lots of stuff to talk about, not the least of which I think maybe Jon Sumrall might be on a heater. Well, we'll see what Edgar Thompson says next. Right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Tell your friends and neighbors we are on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Jon Sumrall on a heater. I will tell you what he said today, Steve Russell. Also, Jon Sumrall, he didn't inherit a blueprint. He lit a match to it, as I wrote in my column. 20 portable guys in 8 days. But he says the most important thing he's doing, he told Steve Russell today on WRF, is retention. You need to keep the guys that you need in your culture. And he said of his new staff, I want to hire great people. The mandate for the new staff, he says, they have to have an attitude to serve. Well, we'll talk about that tonight with our guests, including the leadoff guest, the guy who does a terrific job carrying the pail of water for all of us, a guy who is one of the best journalists I know in the business, and a guy who breaks a lot of stories. Yeah, he's a journalist. He's proud of it. He ought to be because he does a great job. Evening to Edgar Thompson of the Orlando Sentinel. Hello, Edgar.
Hey, buddy. Been a while.
Yes, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the high praise. I've been breaking many stories in the portal. That stuff coming from all angles, and
yeah,
it's been a new age in journalism for us, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be a little more ready next year. I didn't realize just the cascade of news that was going to be coming the way it did. But a lot of good news for the Gators, as you said.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the issues that you just discussed. I think that's important because as a reporter, you can get sidetracked chasing smoke because every day there's 2 or 3 players' names that come up. And it's like having to cover National Signing Day, except every day. And you just can't do it. I mean, nobody can do it all. First of all, you can't keep up with everything. I mean, with this many staff members, this many players, this much change, volatility, it takes about 5 people to do that. And I know it's been frustrating for you. I thought to myself, I would throw up my hands. I can't even keep up with them on far. I mean, just trying to figure out what is going on. So I did my early assessment in the way too early Sunshine Thumper column, which I wrote a couple of days ago. I think people were glad to get some good news. You know, that was the thing. But it just had to do a lot of reading. And there are no sources you can go to call. I was just looking at an old picture of a Gator staff somebody sent me a while ago. back in days when Ray Grace was there, Lindy and things, and my staff, Steve Spurrier, etc. I personally knew every one of those guys and could speak to them probably anytime I wanted to. Now you can't speak to any of them. And as I said to you in our earlier conversation, and I'm not a beat reporter, I'm not Edgar Thompson or any of the rest of the guys who do it. So obviously I don't get priority and I don't expect priority, but it's hard to get your arms around it and it's hard to know how to report it. So how do you do that?
I think this staff, by all accounts, is going to be a good one to work with once it kind of, reemerges. Because in fairness, these guys inherited a program in shambles. I mean, Billy Napier did not do anyone any favors who took this program over in terms of the roster, the culture, all these things that we thought it were so much improved coming into the season clearly were not, and were probably a lot worse than we realized. And accountability in these things he liked to talk about a lot maybe wasn't there as much as he'd hoped or thought. Whatever the case, these guys come in, they're juggling a college football playoff game and against Ole Miss and trying to, get their ducks in a row to retain players, to decide who they're okay with leaving, to figure out the financial aspect, hiring Dave Caldwell, the former Jags GM who worked the last 5 years with the Eagles, and just so many moving parts and a mess. So it was a lot. And I think once these guys, Jon Sumrall and them emerge, I've heard excellent things about just his ability to deal with the media, his willingness, his understanding of our role. So I look forward to it. We'll see how it plays out, but I'm optimistic. But in terms of reporting it, I mean, frustrating, yeah, because you're, just playing whack-a-mole, but it's all about really preparation in a lot of ways. I mean, pre-writing is something that I never did until recent years, and now it's like imperative. I mean, you have stories written on, I had stories written on Clark Lee, on Jed Fish, on, I'm forgetting guys, on another coach in the mix that I already had stories written. They were getting hired, and Jon Sumrall, of course. I had a DJ Lagway leaving story ready. I had Jaden Baugh coming back ready. I had this transfer and that.
These stories never made air. They never made. You wrote them. They never.
You have to write all this stuff ahead of time. And then you do capsules, and all the kids that you're seeing or visiting. I have capsules on kids who'll never be here. And you just have to do that, and then you have to react when news breaks, and you try to break it. I was pretty on top of the staff. I knew a lot of those Tulane guys.
How did you do that?
Well, I mean, I knew someone who was able to, help me with information there. But so I had a lot of that stuff. But when that happened during the Colgate game, we're covering a basketball game.
Yeah.
And I'm getting steamrolled by Pete Thamel and Matt Zenitz on stories that I had written. And Rusty Witt, the strength coach, is really the only one I think I ended up getting before anyone else, because I'm trying to cover a game. And it was it's intense. And I'm a one-man band here. I get some help from Bianchi when it comes to like perspective and analysis. But in terms of reporting the day-to-day and moment-to-moment, it's me. So, again, I'll be more prepared next year, as like I hope to be.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed with what they're doing and with the alacrity that they did it, and really keeping a lot of this stuff, the really important stuff, kind of to themselves until it did get out eventually. But here's the last thing I'll say, buddy. There's a lot of reporting going on. And I use that casually, because that term a little bit casually, because I have to operate on a different standard. And maybe this is something I need to adjust to, being a bit old school and all that. But, expecting someone to sign is not signed, right? And hearing someone is going to agree to terms isn't the same as having agreed to terms. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the ink's got to be dry, but there has to be some surety before you're just going to start just throwing stuff out there, man. Because one bad story like that can discredit you immediately.
Yeah, it's hard. And people don't understand sometimes you got to make 8 phone calls for one story and you still don't have it. And this is what Edgar's job is so hard because you're chasing stuff all the time. How do you not chase something? Well, there's a story that says so-and-so is coming to town to interview for the offensive coordinator job or whatever, and you say, well, do I dare not chase that? And who do I call? And how do I verify it? Anyway, I want to get to the column I wrote earlier this week. Being apparently a labeled sunshine thumper, I guess that's what you call me. Although, as I pointed out the other night, and I'm not bragging, one time in my life I was a badass, okay, as a reporter, just so you know. I can get the clippings out and prove it. But nonetheless, I want to mention this.
You worked at the New York Daily News.
Yeah, well, whatever.
There was no other choice.
Well, I mean, and really, to be honest with you, that wasn't even the hardest spot. It was more competitive in the newspaper war, the Denver Post and Rocky Mountain News. That was cutthroat. And I mean, it was really, really cutthroat. Anyway,
I was out there then. I was in Albuquerque, which was a Scripps Howard paper.
Yeah,
Rocky Mountain News was the next step if you were good.
Yeah.
And then there was no step eventually to get there.
Right.
It was gone.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, the bottom line is that competition is competition. And there was a time, and I hate to bring this up, it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. When I was not necessarily welcome some places in Gainesville because of the approach I took to covering the football team, when I called somebody a liar and could prove it. And then a story I had nailed. I had a letter with a name on it, and I used the story, and the president of the university called me a liar in the Tampa Tribune. And I had a document in my hand, and then he had to come out and actually apologize that he was wrong because he was. It did happen. There was an investigation on the NCAA with Graves, and I knew it and I had it. Anyway, the point is that times change. You said something about how you approach things now, approach things then. You're a hardworking reporter. I know it's difficult sometimes for people to understand why you have to ask the tough questions, but somebody's got to ask them. It's not going to be me because I'm not covered to be. But nonetheless, just going back and looking at the other angle for a second, have a little fun here. And Alan Peake will join us later. We'll talk about one of the things that happened in the press box over the weekend with in Jacksonville. He smack talk, okay? I wrote this piece kind of semi-jest and kind of not, as a person who would be a sunshine thumper. And I said it's way too early, if really ever, to talk about this way. But I wrote this. Jon Sumrall didn't inherit a blueprint. He lit a match under it. 24 guys in 8 days. Half of them still got braces on their helmets. And 3 years ticking. That's resacking the whole damn team. The last crew took 4 springs. 4 springs. That's springs in the season, not as in bed springs. Took 4 springs to haul in 42 bodies, half allergic to contact. This lot, they look ready to line up tomorrow, spit on their hands, and ask who's next. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is I think a significant hire, and one that will impact this program as much as any, is Phil Troutline. Look up his heritage, where he came from. You forget what a giant he was, 6'6" and almost 300 pounds. Actually, anyway, he's the coach now, and he's turned out some really terrific offensive linemen, and I'm sure you read it. Scott Carter had a really good piece on him yesterday, talking about his desire to come back to Florida after 6 years and how he brought his kids down to the Swamp years ago to see where he played. And he was an Urban Meyer's team, and just how much he loved the University of Florida. And all of a sudden, you see they get him, and now you're starting to see the quality of players. He just got a guard from Stanford who's 6'5", 300 pounds, who's obviously pretty smart. And he's got 3 of his own guys, I think, for Penn State. So the offensive line, which hasn't been right in a while, Edgar, might get better in a hurry.
It's critical. It's the most critical area of this team that needed to be rebuilt. Last year's unit, I think Pro Football Focus rated it 4th nationally coming into the season. They had a returning All-American center, a preseason first-team All-SEC left tackle, Austin Barber, Jake Slaughter being the center. Jake played okay. Austin had moments, but he also had some really poor ones, especially at Texas A&M. Damian George was very experienced. I mean, 102 combined starts, those 3, but they didn't play like it very often. I mean, the offense rated like 11th or 12th in the league. Jaden Baugh did work, but DJ was under duress in a number of the big games. But, you know, it just, I think it's still the biggest concern. I mean, I got to be honest. They still feel they need to build this unit. I mean, bring back Najee Harris, 25 starts. Caden Jones started 10 on the right side. Mike moved to left side, we hear. Bryce Lovett didn't really pan out. But Emeka Ugorji, I think,
good job on trying to pronounce it. Yeah.
He's the Stanford kid. I mean, he played more offensive guard snaps in the ACC than any true freshman played, right? Then you got the 2 Penn State kids, TJ Shanahan, who's a guard they really like.
Big guy. Big.
He's John Jalapio's first cousin, former Gator. And then Egan Boyer, is an interesting prospect. Came in at 240, 6'8". And now he's 302. 3-star kid who's evolved, and he's still evolving. So you have those pieces, and they might try to add, you know, are they going to add another before week's end? I don't know if there's one on the radar, but the point being is they know they have to fix the offensive line. Cornerback's another position I think that they still would like to do a little more there, though they do have some potentially nice pieces. Javari Flowers, Ben Hanks, Kermani McLean needs to play a lot better. Dijon Johnson needs to stay healthy. So, you know, the position I wrote about today, and I end on this, is receiver. I talked to Shane Matthews and Chris Doring. They're like, this could be the best room in decades. Going back to Urban, maybe even earlier. You go back to 95, you had Doring, Ike Hilliard, Riedel Anthony, Jaquez Green, Travis McGriff. Doring, I spoke with. He's not going to put him in that class yet, but he loves Eric Singleton. He thinks the guy was underutilized and is phenomenal. The kid isn't even 21. He turns 21 in like close to the season, like August 28th or something. He's younger maybe even than Dallas Wilson, who everyone's like, you know, he's played 4 games. This guy had 162 catches in 3 years. So he's productive. Dallas showed tremendous potential in 2 games, one being the spring game. Vernell Brown was excellent, needs to stay healthy. And there are other nice pieces. I mean, Bailey Stockton might turn out to be a good guy. It's Micah Mays from Wake Forest. TJ Abrams came on. I'm probably forgetting someone, but there are a lot of pieces there. And I think they're, you know, have some real potential to start playing some 4 wide receiver, maybe even 5 wide receiver sets and getting away from all these 2 tight end formations.
Let's say good evening to Alec Peak Wilbur, who's been out on a mission to save wildlife and joined the program tonight. Allie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Tell us what happened with your the bird there. I told you my story of what I had done and gotten in when I tried to rescue a hawk that was hit by a car. But go ahead. What happened? What were you doing?
We live in the suburbs, right? So there is wildlife everywhere. And when I was bringing the kids home from school, we must have just missed a sandhill crane get hit by a car. We saw it like flailing in the middle of the road. So immediately my daughters are like, we have to help. So I pulled over. We're in the middle of literally 4 lanes of traffic. So I'm trying to make sure they're not going to get hit. And I called Eric and was like, I need you to get here right now. We were like, 3 minutes from our house, just right outside of school. And he brought this big giant board and we were able to pick this sandhill crane up, put it on the board, and we took it to a wildlife rescue center not far from our house, and it is going to survive. So that's a good thing. My kids were very happy. Its little partner was like hopping around, which I don't know if you know this, but sandhill cranes mate for life. So
wow.
Ducks do, I know. Yeah.
So they'll make sure that when they release it in the same area, so that the hope is that it finds its mate. But yeah, very dramatic after school experience here.
What a great experience for your children. Edgar, I don't know if you've ever done this. I had this happen to me about 8 years ago outside my house. I live in the suburbs. First of all, I had a whole den of foxes come live in my house, right in the backyard. And the people, the kids that come from school, they just to watch the baby foxes come out, when they came out. But this happened one day, and I was standing out there, and a car hit a bird. It was a hawk, and he flopped over and started flopping in the neighbor's bushes across the way. I thought, well, he must be okay. And I kept looking at him. He kept kind of hide. So I went in and went to bed. Got up the next morning and walked out there. He's still flopping in the bushes. I said, oh my gosh, I got to do something. Yeah. And Edgar, if you're like me, I didn't know who to call. What do you do? And that's itself. I wrote a column.
I wouldn't have left it overnight to begin with, but
I thought it was okay.
I'm joking.
Yeah. Okay.
Allie, good work there.
Oh, thanks.
Let me finish.
Really, I listen to a podcast every day called Bird Note. I was just listening about loons. You should listen to it 2 minutes a day, get you into birds.
Mm-hmm.
There's some amazing wildlife. I live right in the middle of Gainesville, but there's a big owl I see quite often. And so that's a good thing you did.
Just to finish the story, and then Allie elaborate on hers, is that I got the bird, finally captured the bird, and then I had to find out what to do with it. Now you experienced some of this today because you don't know who to call, and you can't call 1-800-BIRDS and find somebody.
How'd you capture it? Those things have talons. I'll tell you.
It was hurt. It was hurt, injured. I just got it surrounded. I didn't pick it up. I know what they got. They get big talons, and I was trying to save its life, and so I managed to isolate it, and I started making telephone calls. I kid you not, at least 25, and I can't find anybody to help me to help this bird. And, and so I finally got a hold of a group out of Lake Weir. As they said, we will come and get the bird and try to see what's wrong with it. And if it could be, his life could be saved. I became attached to the bird. He was a hawk. My favorite player in the old days was Pete Maravich, who was a hawk, right? So I named the bird Maravich. I named him, okay? And then so I called the people up. They came out. They looked at us and said, we're going to try and take him and do what we can. So they took him, and I didn't hear anything about a couple of days. And I called them. They said, yeah, he seems like he may have a few broken bones, but we think he might survive. And if he does, we're going to bring him back out there in a few weeks and release him where near his home. And they did. I can't tell you the exhilaration I felt to watch that bird come out of that cage and fly away. It felt so great. Maravich was home. He went right back up on the tree where he was. And that's my bird story. Allie, now finish yours up. And Edgar, if you got one, let's go ahead and add it in there. So what happened?
And that's about it. Eric took the 4 girls and the bird because they all wanted to go to this wildlife vet, and they got it in, and Eric was thinking it had died in the back of the car, but it was still alive, so that was good. And they said that they're gonna fix it up and hopefully rehabilitate it, and he'll be able to be released. So his legs weren't broken, and it didn't appear that his wings were broken, but like it hit in the center mass of its body. So I don't know if I don't even know if birds have ribs, but like I could imagine a rib cage area injury. But my kids were excited, so that's good. And we're like consistently the family that like picks up the random turtle that's in the middle of the the busy intersection and whatever. So my children are used to like this kind of insanity. This happens to us very frequently.
Edgar, are you an animal person?
I have a pet squirrel, Barney.
What do you mean pet doesn't live in your house?
He shows up every morning on my rail and I throw him almonds.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's fine.
And he literally shows up and looks in the window, basically. And he almost comes in the house now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Barney's pretty awesome. That's all I got, man. I'm telling you, there's a lot of wildlife here in Gainesville you can stumble upon, or Florida in general. So
Yeah, there is. I was that area a long time. Out my window right here is up in Panama City, is a beautiful bay, and we have the first week I lived here. One day we had, I'm not kidding you, 800 birds, a lot of them pelicans, seabirds, out here in this water right below my window. Incredible things, and they come every day. They come every day, and they're beautiful to watch. The pelicans are huge. Their wingspans are 7 feet, and to watch them die and watch them get fish, there's a lot here in this St. Andrews Bay is what this is. But the problem, and this I might turn this into a bird show, the thing that gets me is that they're dwindling, and this is year 2, and they're like down to like 30 birds a day. What's happened to all the birds? I've researched it. I've read about it, the virus they've gotten, and how the migratory patterns change. Anyway, not to go too far down that road. It's amazing to watch these birds. It really is. Speaking of birds, there's some birds in Gainesville right now that are doing pretty good. And Allie, I said earlier before you got on, I heard what Sumrall said to Steve Russell today in an interview. He emphasized the retention of people being so important. His exact words were, Edgar, we talked about this briefly in our conversation. When you hire people, what is the thing you consider? He said, aside from the expertise in their field, they got to know their field, is their character, is the kind of person they are. And they got to be so-called servants, willing to serve. I never, Allie, ever heard that term applied to a coach. Have you? Servant?
So, that's funny that you say that. I actually used kind of a similar description in a speech I gave last year to high school football coaches. And I do think high school football coaches, slightly different role than college coaches. I really do think that, a lot of those coaches, their job is to shape their players into men. It is not necessarily for them to play at the next level. I think, college and high school coaches serve slightly different purposes, but I do think that their job is to mold men, and you have to have a servant's heart to do that kind of work. Now in college, you get paid an awful lot for it if you're doing it at the right place. So I mean, I in Gainesville, the millions also make it easier to be a servant probably, but this is an incredibly difficult job. It is taxing on you. It is taxing on your family. And yes, the money is great in some circumstances, but you have to be cut from a certain cloth to be able to do this and do this well. And you're doing it for your players.
All right. So we talked about some of the things.
Buddy, one sec. Most of these guys start in lower ranks too.
Mm-hmm. They do. Yeah.
So to Allie's point, they kind of develop that ethos there. Mm-hmm. I think these guys, ideally, that's what they want to be doing. It's become more business-like by the day, but they do want to develop guys into disciplined individuals and contributing citizens and all these kinds of things, good parents and fathers, husbands, all that stuff. So I think that's definitely something these guys aim to do. Doesn't always happen. But now because of all the business aspect of it, maybe that's been lost just a little bit, because you don't really get a lot of time around these guys. You might have a guy for a year and then he's gone to another school. So
but you spend every waking minute of that year. And with college football players in particular, college athletes, but think about all of the individual stories we know about the players that come in each year. And many of them don't have the type of role model that these coaches have the opportunity to be for them. And we say, well, they were only there a year, but that could be the most influential year of their life. They may never have had, a male role model take the kind of, stance in their life ever before or ever again. So it is so critical, I think, to their development.
All right. What did we like? What did we like the best? What's the best thing, best hire, best thing so far to emphasize the positive for all those people who say that maybe we're negative naysayers, nabobs of negativism, to quote an old quote, that we think that that Sumrall and his staff have done to change perception, attitude, or have they? Edgar, what is the best thing they've done?
Well, let Allie go first. I already opined for a bit.
I think, I think it's his speed at which he's worked in the transfer portal. We have, I think, what are we up to 23 portal signees in about 10 days.
2 punters.
Say that again?
2 punters.
2 punters, yes. I was very excited about the special teams emphasis. But Napier had 42 in 4 years. So 23 in 10 days. And actually, maybe higher than 23. I don't know. Are we counting the preferred?
It's 23, 21 scholarship.
Yeah. So, that was one of the things that I think he could immediately have done to show us that he's different than the previous regime, and he did it. We sat on this show for years and talked about how we wanted Florida to move quicker in the transfer portal, and never quite got it, right? And I think this was a great way to differentiate how you are going to do things.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. They got as I said earlier, they got 20 in a few days, and how long did it take the last regime to get that many people? That was our big complaint. Remember, Allie? We complained about it for years. Get somebody out of the portal, right?
And do it fast, because nobody's around by the end.
Yeah.
You're getting everybody else's scraps if you aren't immediately acting when that portal opens.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the last guys screwed this up, because that's one of the things I hate the most.
He did. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying, Edgar. But here's the thing: I hear that excuse by everybody. The TV repairman comes in and says, "It's a good thing I came with it. The last guy screwed this up." The plumber comes in. Boy, this last guy screwed this up.
Jon Sumrall, buddy, hasn't said a word of that.
I didn't say he had.
I am saying it, not
personally. I get that. I just can't allow that to pass, because I've heard it 1,000 times.
Okay,
and it's always the last guy.
Say it, buddy.
Okay, well then figure it out. Steve Spurrier didn't say that.
Well, Jon Sumrall hadn't even hinted it.
I didn't say he did, Edgar.
I said it. And he did leave it in a mess. I mean, I said it already. I've already said what I need to say there. Maybe he improved the player experience. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But show me another area. Gator Maid, I think they like it. They're going to retain Savannah Bailey in that program.
But Gator Maid was around before Napier. That was a Mullen thing.
Okay, so fine. $500 million was spent on that program in 4 years, Billy. $500 million was invested for 22 wins. That's all I got to say. We don't need to keep beating up Billy. I like Billy. I see his wife, Allie. Her name's Allie, too, at the gym. We're buddies. She's probably not watching this pod. But the point is, it just didn't work because he refused to adjust, adapt, and delegate, period. But this guy has already shown an ability to delegate. He hired a defensive and offensive coordinator and a special teams coach, a guy who's proven. The Tulane guy, John Galante, he brought his punter, Alex Smith. He brought his award-winning kicker, Patrick Durkin. He might have been a Groza finalist. And those 2 guys were all-conference players. And the thing at those positions, those can actually translate probably pretty easily. Whereas if you were an all-conference guard or whatever at Tulane, you might not come into the SEC and line up against LSU and be all-conference in that matchup. So the guy, look, he's made a lot of the right moves. There are more to make. I'm sure he feels too. They certainly haven't raised the money yet to fully compete. This roster is going to still be, the value of this roster is still going to be well under $10 million. Below what other top rosters are spending. There's a lot of work to be done on the fundraising front, believe me. Because these rosters, man, I mean, the starting 22 is going to be like 27 million at some schools. Just the starting 22. Forget the rest.
Yeah, I can't even equate the money. Let me do this. Speaking of money, I got to do this commercial real fast. From one of my fine sponsors. and that would be Meldon Law. They're really known for their contributions and what they do at the University of Florida. Nobody ever did a better promotion than Meldon Law did. They bought 10,000 replica rings, 10,000, and gave them away to people at the basketball game. I say that because it segues me into something where we have 2 book signings next week, one in both in Ocala, one at Cogent Bank. We'll have Matt Call and some of the boys there. And then we're going to go one out at Chris Spears Prestige Auto. And in both of those, we're giving away championship rings, thanks to Meldon Law. So tremendous job there by them. They also, of course, do law things. I've been a client of theirs for a year, and I love having a guy who's a Gator and also a good lawyer. Check them out if you need somebody. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Okay, guys, I'm going to bring this up, and Edgar, if you're not comfortable commenting on it, that's up to you. But what happened this past week in Jacksonville when the woman from the Jacksonville paper took her opportunity to lavish praise on Cohen, and it was from a journalist standpoint viewed as unprofessional, but she was a credentialed person, and she was like, okay, let me put some motherhood and auntie stuff on you here. Hold your head up. Now, it wasn't appropriate for a journalist, and I know working journalists, I know how you think. I've been one, was one at one time in a previous life. And I know when people eat space up in time and take the opportunity for their own personal comments, that working guys on deadline with every minute precious get really uneasy and don't like it. There's been an upshot to all this. Before I go into any of that, Allie, give me your take on that.
I don't think I would have taken that moment to have that conversation, but it also didn't really bother me either. And in terms of time, I think timed it was like 33 seconds or something. So I think that was kind of much ado about nothing about the amount of time that it took up. And, it may be that she really felt like he was down and that was going to be her one opportunity to say something, until the off season was over and she felt like he needed it. I don't know. I think we all have a human side to us. And we see the emotion that these players and these coaches go through. And I think it's a natural human reaction to want to comfort or console them. Maybe it wasn't the most professional thing she could have done, but it didn't bother me. And I was kind of surprised it went into this huge viral moment. And it does make me wonder if a guy had made a joke like that, would we have the same sort of reaction? Was it because it was a woman doing it? I don't know. It got blown out of proportion, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing is how the national media has seized it. There have been all kinds of stories. Washington Post today. Apparently, this has touched some people along the way. Let's be honest. I consider myself, at least partially, still a journalist, and I always will. I've worked both sides of the fence. I've actually run a press room for 15 years in the media, so I kind of get both sides. And I know you want to be, if it had it happen in my press room, I'd have been a little embarrassed by it, all right? But I think the perception of who journalists are today is that they're these badass people who don't care anything about what happens. Like, I know, you often see people in these newsreels, they're watching a person burned, and they're out there shooting video out, thinking, what's this guy thinking? Now, if he's a human being dying in front of you. I had a good friend who was a really top-notch photographer in Denver and did a lot of football, Broncos. And one day he got hit by a snowball right here and got knocked out. And I talked to him about it afterwards. He said to me, buddy, it's really hard because I look through that lens. I don't get the reality. To me, I'm just looking at a show. I'm just looking at a TV show. I'm not realizing that's really what's going on. I'm not making excuses, but this is the public receiving, I guess, that maybe journalists just don't care. They're like Dexter, the guy who kills everybody. But my point is that I also see the side of the journalists who think this is a professional space. The problem is who owns the airspace over the press box? Not one group, not one person, not two people. And there's the other side of people who were there as fan journalists or whatever you want to call them. Alec, we'd probably fall in that category. But we still try to be honest and be critical when you have to be. But the bottom line is that people, like us to get in there, and sometimes we get shut out. I have been to press conferences where I've driven 100 miles round trip and not able to ask a question. Okay, I'm nobody. I'm not Edgar Thompson. I'm not Pat Dooley. I'm not a board. So I get how people feel like they're closed out, and this woman sort of took liberties. Anyway, it's a big story. That's what it is. I know, Edgar, you don't feel comfortable talking about it. That's fine if you don't want to.
Well, no, that's not the case. And that all I'll say is it was a nice sentiment and done in a setting that it typically something like that isn't expressed. That's would be my main point. I mean, I didn't think that she was, I didn't have a huge issue with her being nice to the coach, but the setting, the deadline pressure people are under, in a very dramatic game that ended a season that could have maybe been held off till the hallway, maybe, or at the end of the press conference. But, people are looking for constantly now, like a cause celeb, a villain, a story, something to, get outraged about or praise. It's the world we live in, social media-wise now, which the lines continue to blur. And this just, became a major national story somehow. I'm just glad I'm not involved in it.
Okay. If you want to comment, Allie, I'm going to go and move to that next question and comment. And we got our friend who really works for the Baptist Union in Gainesville. He writes for us. He's a non-trained journalist, but he does some really good stuff. He's a citizen journalist, quote unquote, what do you want to call it? We'll get his takes. But I want to ask you, both of you, if you heard about this guy that's this 5-star from Colorado, big tackle, offensive lineman, supposed to be a great player, asking for a lot of money. What have you heard? What are you thinking? Do you think Allie, you think that you try to get him?
I don't know that we have the money to try and get him, so I don't know that Florida will be in the mix for Jordan Seaton at all. We were in the mix for him when he was being recruited as a high schooler. I covered him. I remember talking about him, and he ended up picking Colorado. When he was in high school, there was the line of thinking that Florida had a shot there, and they didn't get him. But I honestly don't think Florida has the money for what he is looking for. Somebody will pay him, and he'll be a great player for him.
Edgar?
I think he's too high priced.
I agree.
That's again back to my point a minute ago. That's where a lot of the efforts are going to be placed between now and next portal season is raising money, because you're able just to buy Kirk Cignetti. You were talking about blowing up rosters and things and how quickly it happened, Allie. Kirk Cignetti is like shown that you can do it fast now. And the expectations now, hey, why aren't you Kirk Cignetti? Why aren't you turning around a program that has tradition and history and all that? And this guy can go to Indiana and do it. So he's raised the bar, and the price tag's going up as we speak.
Indiana spent less than Florida spent on their roster, though. So wrap your mind around that. I mean, that's
he did.
Yeah. So I mean, he did wonders in the portal. His evaluations were great, and not that they didn't spend some money, but they're not in the top 10 of what they were spending on their roster in the portal. And I think Florida's issue is that Florida really did spend this offseason trying to up their NIL game, and they felt like they were coming to the table decently prepared. The problem is that everybody else also upped their game this offseason. So I don't know that Florida is really in any different a position than they were the year before, even though they're spending more than they spent the year before, because everybody took it a step up. But I mean, this is going to be a pretty expensive roster. It's not necessarily going to be Ohio State, Texas Tech price tag, but they're definitely not cheaping out either.
Oh, no. They're not at all. I'm not trying to imply that. But to like close the gap with maybe some programs are going to take that. And maybe Signetti, maybe Cody Campbell's actually the one who's really set the bar on this one, the Texas Tech booster.
Yeah,
The Wildcat are spending $25 million on the roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think it's the best story of my lifetime in college football. Signetti and incredible story. And how could you not? And I think it'll be Miami. Let's bring in a guy who does some good work for us. Eddie Gilley works, I guess, is it state or what for the Baptist Association? Eddie, you
I'm the Baptist campus minister at UF, so I work for Florida Baptist. That's my job, and so I definitely do not qualify as a journalist. Let me just say that up front. All right.
Well, you do some really good pieces.
I don't know that any of us do either. So how about it?
I can write and I can speak, but I don't know that I understand the whole how to craft things, and so I'm learning on the go.
Well, you know what you are? You're an unpaid observer. We're paid observers. That's the difference. And your stuff is as good as ours. You do a great job.
I am that.
So just from your perspective, and we only got a few minutes to get into all this. You heard about the woman who made the comments in Jacksonville and the reaction to that as a non-journalist or whatever. What's your take on that, and where do you think that belongs? I think Edgar and Allie and I agree. So if you want to do that, fine. That's probably not the place to do it. Maybe out the hallway or whatever. But what is your take on that?
Well, I definitely think that's not the place. But in fairness to her, she may not have access to him in the hallway. These guys get finished and they bolt from the podium and they're out the door, and you don't get a chance unless you're the national media guys to corner them in the hallway to say hi to them. So, listen, I know I've seen Edgar. I don't know that he knows me, but I've seen him, and I've seen a lot of the other press conferences over the years, both working for the SID department, handing the mic to guys asking questions. And
That's
then
right. You were that guy, which I forgot. Yeah,
I was that guy. That's correct. I was the guy handing the mic to all the people. And
who was the biggest jerk that you dealt with, by the way? Was one of us?
I'm not going to say his name because he's still doing it. I might run into him, and I don't want to have to defend that. But I've heard people ask some stupid questions. Honestly, I mean, I remember Coach Spurrier one time pointing to a guy and saying, "If you don't get that guy out of here, I'm not asking any more questions."
Well, that was Larry. That was Larry. That wasn't because of the question. It was because he hated it.
Of the dead.
No,
listen,
I know all about that.
I think so. I think what happens is, some people don't get to ask any questions, and some people get to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
And some guys in the press conference think, well, I'm the only one writing anything, so I have to ask all the questions. Well, you're on a deadline like everybody else, but we all know most of those stories are written. You're only looking for one quote. You're only looking for one thing. Nobody's gonna. The rare Tebow speech is rare from what people get in that moment. Most of the time, people ask the same question. How does it feel that you lost? And I always want one of the coaches to say, "Let me stand up, let me punch you in the gut, and ask you how you feel." Right? Because you're asking somebody who just got a whole year's worth of work beaten out of them. Like they're out, they're done. And you ask them how they feel. Well, it's pretty obvious how they feel at that point. So I think, what she said was obviously not in the right space for that. And that's why I try not to say anything when I'm in those things. So I'm like, I don't know what's right and what's wrong. So if I'm just quiet, I can be a fool and nobody knows it, but better to be that than open my mouth and prove to everybody that I am. So, I don't know who she is. I don't know if she asked other questions or that's the first time she ever asked anything.
She's
so that would be
credentialed.
She's been credentialed for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she should know better probably then to do that. But she also might be about to retire and says,
better than what? Because she had an emotion and she wanted to. Now, I'm not defending what she did. I'm trying to look at both perspectives. She felt the need to be a citizen journalist who had just seen the teams, as she points out, the season was over, was done, finished.
Right.
And she expressed a feeling that a lot of people agree with. Was it the right place? No. Was the right technique? No. But I defend her right, since she's a credentialed media person, to actually say that and make that comment.
And she didn't offend Cohen. So I mean, I don't. It was other journalists that were offended.
At least he didn't respond that way. If they did, I don't know if he did or not. But
I mean, he seemed genuinely like touched that.
Thank you. He thanked her 2 or 3 times.
Which honestly, I mean, shoot, next season she asked the question. That might be the first person he calls on because he's like, she likes me.
She might become his favorite.
That might be a great strategy. I don't know. Edgar, you need to start buttering up.
Yeah, that'd be good, Edgar. You start buttering up.
Look,
people.
I'm nice to these guys all the time.
You are a nice guy. You really are.
I am nice.
Listen, I've heard you say things like, "Oh, it's great to see you back. I hope you're doing well." You know, you make a human expression to people.
No, I like most everyone I've ever covered, honestly. All the coaches over all the years. Some of them didn't like me, but no, I've never felt highly disrespected by any of them, honestly. But I do look, she was offering comfort, and that's okay. You don't always have to be combative and confrontive with these guys. And I agree, asking how it feels is not an appropriate question. It's a lame, fallback question that what do you expect them to say? Yeah, I don't know. I think there needs to be more community in there. If people do feel like you, buddy, that you've been shut out, I mean, that's ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening. Scott Burns runs a pretty good room.
I like Scott. Scott has brought it back a decorum. The previous guy, however, was not.
Yeah, Scott Burns runs a good room.
I like Scott Burns. He does a good job. He's fair.
And you ask 2 questions and get out. You can't just hold the mic and ask 6 and 8 questions. I mean, if you're on a Wednesday night and there's only about a half dozen of us and you're trying to get a story kind of angle out of a player, for example, I mean, you do a little machine gun fire with 4 or 5, but you got to give everyone a chance. And some people feel intimidated, younger reporters particularly, and you got to, let them, do their thing and build some confidence and some repetitions too.
Just as a point of reference to your point, the first press conference Sumrall had, I called Scott. And I said, Scott, look, I know you have other people to service, but if I'm going to have to sit in the back and I can't get a question in, I don't see any reason to come. And I would like if you get me in, that's fine. I appreciate it. So I went and I sat there in the back. I let every person there ask a question. And Scott kept looking at me. Including you, Edgar, you asked a couple. Everybody asked a question.
I actually asked 1 question for the first time in my life.
That's okay.
Because I was just thinking we should just each get 1, and then people started doing 2, and I'm like, hey, get that back over.
Okay, whatever it was, I waited until everybody got their question to the point where Scott said to me, buddy, I said, yeah, I would like to ask a question. He gave me a great answer. I thought when I talked to him about it, about the fact that the day he was down and out, thought he lost football, what did he do? And he talked about coming up down here to the beach and pounding some beers and thinking about his life. But my point is not that I have that many great questions. I don't. But every now and then, especially a new coach, I'd like to get 1 question in, and I got it in, and I appreciated that. Now, other times I may not, and I have been stuck like that. Anyway, it's not about that. All right, guys, we got about a minute and a half to go. I'd like us all to sort of, if we don't mind, I know it's early, too early to grade, but given what we know, this 10 days that he's been on board, if we had to give him a grade as of this point, I'll start with Eddie. Eddie, what would you give Jon Sumrall based on what you know so far in terms of a predicted grade?
I think you have to give him at least a B+ or an A-. It just you don't know until it's done how good these people are going to
No, but this is right now based on what we know.
Yeah, but based on who he's brought in and based, more importantly for me, on who he kept, I'd probably give him an A- on that just because I'm a hard grader.
Okay. Edgar?
D. No, I'm kidding. I'd give him I was thinking A- in my head only because I just don't want to be a kiss ass and give him an A. But I'm not saying he's made all the right moves. We don't know about the staff completely, right? I mean, some of these hires, you're like, maybe a lot of Tulane people, but they had a lot of success, and we'll see. But I mean, he retained his top 5. The only few guys that he lost, Burrow, I would have liked to have kept, but he has knee issues maybe. Trey Wilson, I think, needed to change his scenery. Aiden Mizell can't stay healthy. Aaron Gates, I would have liked to kept, but he can't stay healthy. So he didn't really lose anyone. DJ needed to change his scenery. So I think it's been pretty good. I mean, we still got to see a quarterback emerge, but there's a lot of meat on the bone, I think, after this transfer portal and recruiting period.
Allie.
I mean, I give him an A so far. And I think, obviously, this is like, a homework assignment, and the regular season is a test. So this A might mean very little by the time we're in October. But I think he's done a great job in the transfer portal. I like the hires. I know you mentioned Edgar bringing over some Tulane people, but I think that he did it in a way that was smart. They're taking a lesser role than they had at Tulane, which I think makes sense, right? If you have somebody you trust, you want to bring over, but you're not bringing over your coordinators from Tulane and making them coordinators at Florida. You're making them like the quarterback's coach. Like, I can wrap my head around that kind of move. Love the roster retention. He retained the 5 guys that I felt like it was really key for him to retain. And I think he's won the PR battle so far. And I think he was already kind of starting a little bit behind the line with that because of what went down with Kiffin, and because we were convinced we were getting him, and because it felt like we settled at the very beginning because everything was so focused on Lane. So the fact that he has won over so much of the fan base so early, I think, is incredibly impressive. Now, all of this will be nothing if we don't win football games in the fall, but I like what I see so far. So far, A.
Allie gets an A. That was a good answer. I want to. Yeah, I like how you pointed out the PR battle, because definitely he was coming in with some headwinds because Lane Kiffin went to LSU.
Yeah, and by the way, just in 30 seconds to go here, I will say that he has already far surpassed what the previous coach did. And all the press conference we went to and attended, I still don't know what the hell Napier was talking about. He gave non-answers to questions, and it's like he purposely tried to confuse us. It doesn't take much to confuse me, but he didn't even answer the question. So
Sumrall can open a water bottle too, so
Yeah, that's right.
And I think you're going to get what he really thinks. I don't think he's going to be one that you have to worry about what he's thinking behind your back.
Which this fan base appreciates. I think that I don't know that the previous regime ever took the time to understand what made the fan base tick. And I think that's massively to the detriment of whoever the head coach is, to not fully understand the culture that you're walking into. And it seems like Sumrall is interested in finding out what makes this fan base tick. We showed him our very worst when we, found out he was getting hired, and he still wanted us. So I think that's a good sign. But he does seem interested in what UF fans want to see. He hit it in the opening press conference about an explosive offense. He retained the guys that everybody felt like was important to retain. Like, these are little wins that he can put in his back pocket and take with him into the season. And that is that currency is important.
Yeah, and just the idea he took pictures and posted on social media of the iconic places around the campus, just to show he was trying to get to know the campus and the people. And to me, it was like the previous guy was passing through. He didn't want to make any relationships. He just wanted to say, okay, next town, and I'll take the same playbook to the next job at James Madison. All right, guys, great job. Great to have you on. Eddie, Edgar, thanks. Good to be with you. And Allie, thanks as usual. All right, guys.
Good to see you guys.
Good to
see you guys.
Good night, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you. All right, folks, to wrap it up, we'll say a thank you to our other fine sponsor we have here, who does a great job in what they do, and also in sponsoring us. Titan MRI Imaging has 3 locations to serve you: 2 in Gainesville with Park Avenue location now at the Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City serving all of Columbia County and Valdosta, Georgia. They offer the same great customer service. What I love about them is they will actually schedule you a night appointment if you need it, because some people can't get there during the day. They accept insurance, or you can go through their convenient self-pay options for MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, ultrasounds. Easy scheduling with lots of options, as I said. Larger MRI machines for your patient comfort. No ERs, no hospitals. Tight MRI and imaging coming to Ocala soon to better serve Marion County. Thanks to them. Thanks to our special guest tonight. Hope you'll come back tomorrow night for the final show of the week. It's going to be interesting. How about that basketball team? Don't forget the signings next week on Tuesday at Koja Bank in Ocala, and then Saturday at Prestige Auto in Ocala. So check them out. You gadget. The book is for sale. You can also go to Spurriers.com and go into the shop options there and do that as well. So take a shot there and find out what that's all about. It's a really good book, and their fans did a terrific job of writing it, and you're going to enjoy reading it. So have a good night, folks.